Hello to all our dear friends, students from all over Europe, and also not only Europe. It works out that actually people are watching us from all over the world. As always, we have Tal. How are you?
Wonderful.
And how was your week?
Very fast. It's
really brief. You see things on Facebook?
And we have an amazing friends. They're advising, they're helping in translation to each other. They're amazing. They're creating an environment as it should be.
And have you been in Facebook for a little bit?
Yeah, just a little bit.
And how did you feel the environment there?
It develops, it grows stronger. There are many things to clarify, but it's very exciting. It's the beginning, and you see how the friends are marching their first steps. It's very exciting.
These are first steps, but in amazing speed. You have no idea what preparations you're doing all together. And we, now from today onwards, are beginning every lesson immediately with a clip of our dear Dr. Rav Leitman, who's going to show us the right direction so that we will be able to enter through that direction and see the whole lesson. So let's go ahead and see this clip.
Shlomo from Jerusalem is asking to hold on to the intention. Is it a kind of meditation, a guided imagination, a thought? What is it exactly?
And yoga.
So what is it?
Everything
to hold
together.
the intention.
Without the society influencing you and projecting upon you the thought and the desire, so you'll be kind of under that influence, you won't be able to hear. And this is called mutual guarantee, where we all obligate before everyone. Friends, we're thinking only about one thing, how we will be under the intention to connect between us by the light which is arriving towards us now. Okay, let's read it in such a way. Well, go ahead. So with what intention are you reading?
You said it.
No, what do you need to say within?
Now I have to tell everyone? Ouch.
Yes? So again, he's an example to many people. I simply saw that he was preparing himself for the text. He's not just like that lazy. So we are reading with the intention that we together are concerned, each and every one, for everyone, so that no one will leave that intention in which through connection we attain spirituality.
Okay, dear friends, we are in lesson number 6. It is a very special lesson about many things which are our foundations. It's half a lesson repetition, half a lesson of a new world. We'll deal with the laws of nature, and we will format ourselves to the most fundamental elements in a way of a Kabbalist. What did we learn till now? Or what have we been through in the previous lesson? That we are under the influence of 4 factors, and these 4 factors dictate every action we take, every thought we have, every emotion, every desire. What we feel is because there is a concealment. We don't feel that there are forces operating on us. There's a system of forces which influence us. This is how we feel, but we're motivated by a program which is in our desire. This is why a person who doesn't have some external reference point to the will to receive, he has no ability to make a choice. Therefore, our ability to choose really starts from the moment the point in the heart is awakened. Then a person really has an ability to choose between bestowal and reception, and then he starts building an environment. And while he creates that environment which influences him in this stitch between the 3rd and 4th factor, then he starts rising to that quality of bestowal.
And this happens because the new environment which he is in, which is constantly getting newer, gives him a certain direction. It's like the sights on your rifle It's not enough that it gives you the goal. It's not enough, but we need my eye and what's in the other side. I need something in between this sight where I can direct together towards the Creator directly. So this is that environment where I stabilize myself through the study under the influence of the reforming light. And this is the goal which the Kabbalists have defined for us. So this is what helps us. And this is, as we say, without further ado, let's move directly into our lesson today. A little prelude and we will start.
One unique and unified. Soon we will talk about him, but before we do talk about the one unique and unified, which is a fundamental law in nature, first we want to read a part from the article, the piece by Baal Sulam, who presents the dilemma, which is the share of humanity since we exist and know ourselves. From the beginning of history, humanity never knew how to organize the contradiction in this phenomenon we exist in, nature, providence. So let's see what Baal Sulam says. Every reasonable person who examines the reality before us finds two complete opposites in it. When examining creation, its reality and conducts, there is an apparent and affirmed leadership of great wisdom and skill, both regarding the formation of reality and the securing of its existence in general. But those who examine that reality from the perspective of provision and persistence of existence can clearly see great disorder and confusion, as though there were no leader and no guidance. Everyone does that which is right in his own eyes, building himself on the ruin of others. The evil thrive, and the righteous are trampled mercilessly.
What is being spoken of here? Have you ever had a newborn? Yeah, yes, you had a baby that was born. You remember. So all those months, the mother protects it inside her belly. Maybe Tal can tell us about that. And she protects it and thinks about it. And then when it comes out to the air of this world, and everyone's like, ah, tee, 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 and everyone's like, and whatever, every noise it makes, there's a party, and they feed them and care for it, and the mother and the grandmother, and he's so small and cute, and everyone cares for it. And what happens later as it comes to the air of the world, and goes to kindergarten and school, and the friends, and the high school and university, and the screaming starts, and the diseases, and the problems, and he has to stand on his feet and to care for himself. And look at what a difference there is between what nature prepared for him, this natural care, and what happens later, which he has to get along on his own. And it's not just the baby. And Baal Sulam also gives the example of a little tick. Yes, inside its its egg, everything's fine, but later, in order to be sustained, it has to break its teeth and all that. Why is there this contradiction?
There's a rip here between the will to receive, our nature, which fills the world and wants to enjoy from everything in the world, to the system we live in. Now, intuitively, naturally, it is clear to us, we understand it, and throughout the years, we look for a way to mend that conflict, that contradiction. How can it be that on the one hand, reality is so harmonious, it's miraculous. The formation of a baby, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. How perfect this process is and that it can happen. So why do we need the pain and suffering for later on? And where does it come from?
And furthermore, even emotionally, let's try to think for a moment that I deserve everything. Let's say, try from inside, the whole world is for me. And furthermore, I need to enjoy everything. That is a primordial sensation that exists in us. And what life do we get? And then everyone tried to explain it in all kinds of different methods, because truly this terror is a real paradox in beliefs and faiths and religions, where there's one who's providing which is good and the other is bad, and I need to ask the good to take care of the bad, and so on and so forth. But the truth is that in order to stand on all this and to know why these things exist and how to use them, and where the logic is in all these things, we are going to explain together the principles of the integral system, the system of bestowal, that laws of rules and instructions through which we need to see the world and our life. And now is the time for a passage of one unique and special, the same passage. So go ahead.
Okay, so this is how it goes. Nature is indeed, as we understand and see it, is one. Although it is divided into different aspects and levels and different creatures and so many details, but we talk about nature. This is how Kabbalists explain about nature. Kabbalists who have attained the whole of nature, the depth of nature, the root of what we see with our eyes as nature, they have attained it in the form of one general law, which is one, which is unique, and its details are special, but they whole are a part of that one wholeness. Now, ordinary people throughout history, as we mentioned before, and we recommend that you read the article, the piece, Bala Sulam explains the entire human evolution there, and it's searched in few short paragraphs. It's amazing. Because we don't have enough time, we won't read it. But he explains at how at first people thought that nature is blind, and then they thought that there are two forces, and then many forces, and then all kind of mythologies with many idols were created, as we see in India, Greece, Rome. And throughout history and evolution, people try to explain to themselves why nature relates to them in such a way, in such a bad way. Why should they go through so many suffering and torments? And Bala Sulam in one sentence says something very simple. Perhaps the problem is not with nature, perhaps the problem is with our perception. Perhaps the problem is in us. We don't need to change nature. Perhaps those who have to change is us. And this is a very fundamental perception of Kabbalists, which is the foundation and basics of the entire wisdom of Kabbalah. On the outside, everything is perfect. The only thing that needs to be changed is me. My perception, my sight, the paradigm I live in.
And of course, we have examples from this. When I pray, for example, maybe not in some orderly prayer, I ask for something in my life. Sometimes there's, in times of crisis, I think of him or something there. I don't know what I imagine to myself. But I'm asking, what am I asking? Inevitably, it feels bad, do good for me. Now, if nature is one, this is our first law, and there's none else besides him, then what am I saying, actually? I'm saying, you did bad. Yes, you made my life really bad, and now I'm asking you, change the bitter mistake that you made by organizing me such a life, and work it out. And if you do something good, I promise I'll behave well, and so on and so forth. The Kabbalah says something completely opposite. They say that we need to change our perception upon the change of our desire to a perception and grasp that truly nature is one. And from here, the second law stems a small
I don't think he has the good and benevolent. But I have a question.
No, ask a question.
They are starting to ask questions very soon. They're asking, what are the righteous and the wicked that you have mentioned before in the quote you just read, and why it seems that the reward that they get for their act, for the deeds, like they switched between them. The wicked receive good and the righteous receive bad.
Once Rav Leitman gave an example to this, and I think he gave an example exactly about England. He talked about when he met with all kinds of people who inherited a certain huge estate, they have no problems in life. Everything is fine. And they're doing cocktail meetings and going to Africa, and they contribute monies to different places. They grow in some big field in some big estate with a servant, a dog, maybe a husband, a wife, or whatever. And Rav Leitman said that these are the most poor people in the world because actually they have no need to recognize anything other than what they received. I look at it. I don't even have my wallet today. And even if I did, there would be no money in there. And I look at it, oh, well, let me change places with them. No. The correction of the soul is done with other eyes and not in the eyes which we look upon them. Because, first of all, we're looking at it from the will to receive. And secondly, from one who, thinking that, oh, if someone has money is happy and so on. And furthermore, it leads us to
talk about the next law.
The next law, and the next law is called good and benevolent. And this is what it says. We're going to read a quote from Bala Sulam, from an article which is called The Essence of Religion and Its Purpose. And because we realize that the Creator is in and of himself complete and needs no one to help him to completion. Why? Since he precedes everything. If so, it is therefore clear that he does not have any will to receive, and because he has no will to receive, he is fundamentally devoid of a desire to harm anyone. Thus we learn that he has only a desire to bestow goodness, hence we have defined him as the absolute good. What is Bala Sulam saying in the most logical and simple manner? We, the Kabbalists, attain the Creator as the primordial preceding force, which means he doesn't need anyone to complete him. He doesn't need to receive anything. He is whole. He is the source. From this, it stems that he can't harm, he can't do bad. He only has the desire to give. Therefore, this form, which possibly we will wear one of these days too, very soon, is called the absolute good. When I don't want to receive from someone, but rather I only want to give. That's the desire, and that's my nature.
So to conclude, those 2 points, we can write them down this way. The first law is that there's none else besides him. There is none else besides him. That is the first law. There is one unique and unified force in nature. The second law is that he is good and benevolent. Good who does good. And these 2 laws, there are also 2 degrees of concealment which we have to cope with when we ascend from the corporal world to the spiritual world. The first degree, which we will talk about later on, also on the second semester, and we will dedicate a complete lesson for there's none else besides him. This is the fundamental law of nature, but we have to understand that we're talking about some elation where a person ascribes everything that happens to him in his life, internal or external, every moment he ascribes it, he feels that it comes from one source. And the next degree is that he also knows and feels and ascribes every such moment to the good and benevolent. And it's not good and benevolent in the ordinary feeling we live by, which is the will to receive. Rather, it's also already a spiritual good and benevolent. This is where we rise to, and these are the 2 degrees that if we rise above them or rise to them or learn how to perceive them, then the concealment is gone. Bala Sulam, by those 2 definitions, we start using them starting today. Try it as 2 axioms. True, I don't feel it, I'm not in it, but let us try to feel our lives, every incident, every thought, every desire, from within and without, through these two axioms, that there is one force operating on me through this whole system and promotes me to achieve him, to attain him, and that everything that happens to me, although it seems to me in my eyes of my world to receive that is not good, I want to justify it and see that it is good. Every work of Kabbalists is in that, but let's start with it today. And that brings us to the third law, to the law of equivalence of form. Yoram? Okay, guys, the law of equivalence of form, we will do it quickly. We spoke about it during the previous lessons. You notice that in this lesson we mention all the fundamental laws. There are many more, but we want to put things in order in our mind, write it down, and then we will send you the summary in a Facebook group, and we'll have it in a rational, logical way placed before us, and we will be able to see the whole thing. What is the law of equivalence of form? We see it in nature. The whole of nature strives to be in balance. What does it mean, strive to be in balance? It is consisted of two opposites which are in constant movement, and they constantly strive to balance each other and to reach a state which is called harmony. Our lives are not harmonious for now. Later on we will talk why they're not harmonious, who determines that lack of harmony, and already now we understand that the law of equivalence of form, its realization, its true essential realization is up to us, up to people.
So just one thing to remind you, that this one unique force wants to benefit, it wants to do good to someone, to us, so that we will come to this law of the equivalence of form. The second thing which comes from this is that the equivalence of form, or love, is the measure of connection we have with Him. This is how we are in connection with it, and furthermore, the means of the Kabbalists to investigate the spiritual world is only from equating our form. By me becoming similar in my properties to the spiritual properties, I can feel it and investigate, study part of it. I become more similar, I can study more of it. And this is what Kabbalists write in their books. The question is, what connection could there be between the Creator, which is the pure bestower, the pure property of bestower, and us, who are the will to receive? How could there possibly be common understanding between these two systems? And for this, we have the next law, Yoram, law number 4. So, in order to bridge between the Creator, the system of bestowal, we call it Binah, and the Creator, and the creature, the will to receive, Malchut, we need a whole system of worlds and Sfirot and Partzufim, which we will learn next semester. But in order to understand this desire which the Creator has created, is to, in longing to something that's not in its program, something new above it, to long for the Creator. And for this, we need a certain merging of understanding between these two systems, and also an order of actions and states which will connect between the most higher world and the most lowest world, which is called the roots and the branches.
It's quite natural to us. We understand that between two opposite states there has to be some connection, some coordination, and especially between something which is spirituality and corporality, bestow and reception, love and hatred. Soon we will come to the functional expression of that law as we go in the lesson. But we have to understand that this passage between the absolute good, that state which is called Ein Sof, the light of Ein Sof, to a state where we are now, it needs some adapting system. And all these shades, this whole cascading of the system of the world, Sfirot and Partzufim, is called the law of root and branch. This is a law that dictates to us how we should relate to our evolution. Because if we understand that from that one source, all the forces and all the worlds which are spiritual structures which were created in order to coordinate our ability to enter into those trails that brings us eventually to something that is called the King's Palace. This is where it all was cascaded from, to that place which is filled with the light of Ein Sof. Then we have understand that we have to go from below upwards in the same ways, in the same conducts that system was created by from above downward. This is the essence of the law. We have no ability to do below nothing, no correction. We need to rise to the degree of the root, and from the root we perform the corrections. This is why the wisdom of Kabbalah, I see that you have something to say about it. This is why this wisdom of Kabbalah brings a person to look at the corporal reality in a very, very rational, balanced kind of way, in a very clever and silver kind of way. The person who takes the path of Kabbalah, he sees, he feels and understands that here in the actions of this world, nothing can change. The real change can be done only by an inner evolution that brings the person himself along with the rest of the people to the degree of the root.
To add to this, our means to send are the writings of the Kabbalists, our authentic writers, Rabash, Bala Sulam, and Rav Leitman. And we use these books in order to draw the reforming light, as we said, and as a result of that, arise to the higher degree of attainment. Questions, Tal?
We have many friends asking questions from Belgium, from Germany, from London. Merek from Poland is asking why the soul strives to have a contact with the Creator, but a person, he doesn't know how to do this, and then they passes away from this world without any correction or to realize the purpose for which he was created. Here we come to the concept we talked about when we talked about the law of root and branch, and in other lessons we mentioned it in all our lessons. This is something called Reshimo. This is a spiritual information, like a spiritual DNA, which is encoded in the will to receive of each and every one of us. Parts of that whole single soul. We will talk about it more. But that spiritual DNA, which reflects the descent of each and every one of us from that state where we were united to the state we're in now, separated without feeling the Creator, that DNA does its action. It expresses itself throughout our corporal life, throughout the evolution when we evolve in this world. And in this evolution, our narrow sight, which is also only in order to keep us on the way. This is a blessed concealment. We will see how miraculous it is. Always, we're born and die, but actually we developed according to that regime. Seemingly, we don't know where that Creator is, and we keep searching for Him. We search for Him through different desires: food, sex, family, money, respect, control, knowledge, spirituality. And in fact, by this we scrutinize what we do throughout our evolution. We scrutinize, unconsciously perhaps, our desire to receive. We scrutinize it, and then we realize that there is no pleasure there, there is no fulfillment there, there is no purpose to it. We won't reach a deep truth and eventually the Creator. And then we develop with that new reshimo to reach the purpose of life and spirituality.
Another question?
It's a good thing you mentioned it. How can we know what is that good? How can we know that the Creator is indeed good? Perhaps it's just toying with us.
We can't know, and how can you know that the Creator is good? Look at your life. Between us, I don't see that the Creator is so good. And really, we need to start looking at something good, start measuring this new path and seeing if it's okay. If you feel that it's good and you feel pleasure, I'm saying, emphasizing the pleasure in this area of the wisdom of Kabbalah, go for it. We go according to what gives us pleasure. This pleasure that we get from the point in the heart is a multitude of 620 times. Well, the word 620 is not a quantity. It's not like a kilo. It's 620 pounds, seemingly. But no, it's eternally greater. So develop it, and it's given to us in order to give us the impression that it's enough to try and be filled in the way of the ego, and it's time to be filled in the way that the Creator went. But we'll touch on this soon. Other questions?
Yeah, John from England is asking, you said that the Creator, he doesn't exist without the creature. So does the Creator need us, the creatures?
I don't know, John. Ask him. Does he need us? Don't talk about him as it is on his own. But when they talk about the measure of the Creator, they feel themselves a need to bestow and to bring closer all the parts from their children to their family in a clear manner, to bring them closer and unite them. What does it mean to unite them? In equivalence of form, so they too will come to the degree of attainment, no less than what is in the Creator. So we're waiting for you together with us. We'll reach it.
Last question. You mentioned before the books.
Yes?
A question from Austria. What do this book has that connects a person to a higher reality? Is there knowledge there or some operation instructions? There is light there. There is light there. The light is abstract. We cannot perceive it. We have no ability to understand, to taste, to experience, and to be in active contact with that concept called light. There are many different kinds of light. We will talk about it more in the next semester. Kabbalists, in a certain spiritual degree, those who, from the root of their soul, has the ability and the permission to express that degree, they write about their spiritual emotion. They put it into words, letters, and that thing, well, we read it as if these are sentences, words related to our world, but actually what it contains within, inside the words, behind the words, in the internality of the words, it contains the spiritual degree they exist in, and this is what they describe. And this is how we can connect to that degree. We spoke about it already.
Yes, they wrote this for us so that we will find through these words, from the desire and the longing, we talked about intention, to be what's behind it, and not in any other way. We fill the other parts that are inside us, but we will want to develop a new desire, the point in the heart, and I do it with everyone in my environment, then the light operates. Let's move to the fifth law, where man is part of nature. As much, well, why don't you start?
Honestly, we put that slide just in order to agree with each other, because we tend to think many times, the developed enlightened men, that we're higher than nature, that we can control nature. We know how to put Brahm inside rain, clouds, and create rain. We know how to do many things. We know how to clone and create animals, create creatures. No. We are an inseparable part of the general law of nature. We are its most developed degree. That's true. But with our arrogance, we tend to think that we are higher than nature. And this is the root of the problem. We have to understand very well, and in times of crisis or very high wise or serious floods or fires or plagues or all kind of disasters, all of a sudden we understand that we are no more than little flies, helpless in front of the enormous force of nature, which is inanimate. We're not even talking about God. Then we understand how small we are. We are nobodies.
And this is not some religious saying there, we're small and he's great, but we're talking about the fact that even the crisis that we're experiencing right now, the growing of the desires, the fact that we have developed to become a global village, all these things appear that we're disconnected from nature. Nature is trees and forests and animals and streptococci, and all these are part of nature. We are part of the process which nature is constructing. We just don't feel it yet. Let's move to the next law, law number 6, which stems from this. Also, we put the wrong slide, so that will come to us, but we are talking about the fact that a person must have a social life. What does this say? All of nature is a system at any level. We start with the godly system, which is a system of sphirot, of partsufim, and endless connections between the parts, through the degree of inanimate, where atoms and how the atoms and molecules are constructed, and vegetative, inanimate. You can read studies on the internet about fungi that are actually not on their own like some mushroom, but really it's a system of mushrooms that are passing information from one to another. The same is with the animate, the animals, and same with the speaking variety. And all of our development within creation is as a result of the combination of two forces, the force of giving and the force of reception. The force of reception, because we are essentially made up of the will to receive, we feel it. The force of giving, which operates, the integral force of nature, which operates in us and in all the levels, is hidden, it's concealed. We can only feel it when we look at the rest of the levels in nature. And we see how animals behave, the vegetables, the trees, but we don't see about us that we're a system. But actually, Kabbalists say that this force, this integral force, the force of bestowal, the force of the Creator, is like a spark, like a DNA, like some kind of information which is buried within the force of reception. It's like two layers, an external layer. I feel the desire to receive, to absorb, and what we don't feel is constantly operating and emerging the force of bestowal. And this brings us inevitably to develop, even though we develop from one desire to the other, money, honor, knowledge, other desires. Eventually, what happens within is that we connect. The more our desire increases, we connect to a society, to a very tight system. And just so you understand, I'll ask you, what is interdependency in an integral system? Like we're like one village. What does this say?
This is what it means. It means that, first of all, the first thing that is required from us is to apprehend it and to feel it, because we don't feel it. It means that perhaps we can understand, it's a global world, trade, it can be in confidence, there's a security, there's a problem here, it affects other countries, but we don't go to the depth of the interdependence and the connection. This is what the wisdom Kabbalah opens up for us. If we are so connected and so influence the rest of the degrees of nature, we will talk about it soon, we have to take into consideration that every action that I do should now relate to the collective, all of it. Because if I now do something, any action, if I move a finger, if I'm thinking something, necessarily act in the entire system. I move all the cogwheels of the system. So where am I moving them to? Where am I directing them to?
It's really a law, and the truth is, Rav Leitman just said if we would feel it, how cruel it is. It's like the smallest little thing, you're influencing the whole system, both for the good or for the bad. And not only that, our whole life, our thoughts, our desires, everything are moved and influenced by 7 billion people. So let's ask ourselves now, in such a system where there's a interdependency, where everyone is connected, we're supposed to be very prosperous and succeed, like in everybody. Does this happen? Well, not so much. Why? And now Yoram is our video producer here. He is going to move something and now show us about how man is opposite of the Creator. So in such a system, what's bad? What doesn't work? Why on one hand nature is harmonious, and on the other hand, all our life, forgive me for saying so, is just screwy? There's a thing in a person that's just called ego. It's an inner program. We will learn how to feel it soon, which operates not just towards itself. I don't have ego as for myself. I don't think, oh, I'm eating a tomato. Oh, you deserve it. No. Ego works in the network of connections between us, and it works against that connection for some reason. And even furthermore, it uses the connection between us for self-benefit and enjoys it, especially from this thing, and it takes from all of nature. This is in our beastly desires, food, sex, and family, and takes from us from all the humane and human desires.
So basically there is something very tricky, very cunning here, and seemingly cruel, which actually happened throughout creation and created us opposite from that one force. Because if we look at nature, all of it, the still, the vegetative and the animate, then we see that there is no ego. What is the meaning of ego? A lion, for example, perhaps we gave that example in the past.
We can give with the example of the bad wolf.
What do you mean the bad wolf?
Well, you know, from all the tales we have, the bad wolf, with the Red Riding Hood, we always say that they're bad, these animals. Because we've related that anything that is a carnivorous must be bad.
I don't know. I look at the safari in Africa. A lion devour a deer, and then there is a flock of deer walking next to him.
And
and he's just waving. He's just waving his tail and chasing away a fly, but he doesn't want to eat another deer.
I bit you. You deserve it.
So even a deer, Rav Leitman gives us very beautiful examples how a deer running away from a lion who is about to devour it, also instinctively it feels that she's playing this miraculous game of nature. There is no self-calculation or consideration. She doesn't say, oh, you are now harming me. No. There is an instinctive drive operating all those creatures in nature, still vegetative and animate, and they all live in this harmony. They work harmoniously in balance, and they don't need more than they need or to leave one on the expense of someone else.
And especially here, something amazing happens, especially from where a person has this illusion that he's free of nature. And why? Because he's disconnected. He's truly in an opposite program to nature. So they have this feeling like I don't belong to those rules. I can do whatever I want. And on one hand, it's a wonderful thing. So we'll understand why. But on the other hand, as much as a person thinks that he, or seems to him that he is free, even in that, He is under absolute laws of nature. We can remind several of them that we learned in our first lesson. First of all, the laws of the will to receive, the program that manages me. And it's a law. It's not something that I can wiggle around in. Maximum pleasure and the minimal exertion. What other laws do we know?
A very clear law, by the way, animals, is that my pleasure and delight is always comparison, meaning it is measured compared to other people. So people are social creatures, so we cannot measure a pleasure just by myself. It has to relate to someone else, and that relates to the next law also.
Meaning, nature tricked us. He says, oh, I'll give you something, but only one or the other. Only with the ego, we enjoy one at the expense of the other. Another law is the law of the development of desires, the development of the ego. But what happens here? A person comes out from all of his development, the most developed animal. For some reason, we call him the crown of creation. And then there's something else that comes out here. That because man is the most developed thing in nature.
What does it mean, developed?
Meaning he's in the degree of speaking, he's above everyone. He's so developed that he feels his kind, and not just at the moment, but we can feel our kind, our species. I can be jealous or be angry at some, I don't know, leader from the past and think what a terrible person he is and love some image. There's such relationships between us that animals don't have.
And above time and place.
Yes, and they're above time and place. We're connected in such a way, and especially in this connection, just because we're in the most developed degree, we can destroy, ruin, and demolish all of nature, all the levels in nature. In other words, all the degrees in nature depend on us. Ecology and economy and animals and the floods and radiation from the sun and whatever you want. The humankind will destroy and do everything truly depends on him. And the question arises, how can it be that nature, which comes from this connection, harmonious for the creator and all that, is so...
That miserable creature that destroys itself and like cancer throughout its evolution destroys everything up to dangers of destruction.
And it also is a system of such codependency.
Yeah, and if we destroy ourselves, and that can happen if we look at things in a realistic manner, how will we achieve the purpose of creation?
So we don't want to get there, and we have to explain this whole contradiction and clashing that occurs in nature. But maybe before that, a little question.
Yeah, they predicted what you said in this misunderstanding. So Roberto from Germany and John from England are asking about the Creator wanting to make us feel good. But the Creator is something that goes through a lot of suffering and pain along the way. This is one question. And on the other hand, there's this very familiar expression of being one with nature. So what does it mean, really?
For the first question, I think we should answer further on because we're going to be touching on it. The second question, being one with nature, I don't know what it says. Maybe to hug a tree.
To merge with a tree.
Yeah, truly merge with a tree, sit in some field and feel the wind and the little gnats and mosquitoes and be one with the field of wheat. I don't know what it means to be one with nature. Being one with nature, as we see here, means to come to a degree of attainment where I find that I am one in adherence with nature, with the Creator. So let's return once again to the question, how could it be that he created us in an integral system so opposite and that we can destroy the whole system? So we're going to move to the next interlude. Before we do that, Yoram, this is the frame of the advantage of light from darkness. So look, all in all, we start to understand, thanks to the Kabbalists who have attained nature, that nature has a plan and intelligence and an essence. They talk about the fact that nature operates upon humankind through all these things, all these revolutions, just to bring us to a place where we'll understand the destructiveness of the ego and the lack of this quality. And we see how nature does this. The first example, the pleasure which nullifies the desire. Here, we talked about this already. I can't enjoy. The fulfillment enters and it disappears. The development desires, oh, what should I aspire to? What should I develop? Money, no honor, oh, knowledge. And then it stops. There's nowhere to go, and everything begins to shatter in this crisis.
Basically, nature is pushing us. Apropos about John's question about the suffering and the unpleasantness and the uncomfortableness, we remember how Baal HaSulam in his article The Freedom says that only two forces can motivate the will to receive, either something pulling him from the front or something pushing him from behind. We're drawn to pleasure or we're being pushed away by rejection or unpleasantness. And this is how we develop. And we're asking ourselves in a much more profound and consistent and broader manner, more scrutinized way, why? It's the same question you asked, which is the question that needs to be asked. Why do we need all those sufferings for? What is the purpose of this life? If we wouldn't have had, would we have asked such questions? Would we have turned our head towards an external force, or would we just lie down on a beach in the Dominican Republic or in Tahiti or in many other places, playing football?
Or at least watch the World Cup.
At least watch it, and then everything would be fine. What could be more than that? But we were not created for that purpose. We were created to rise above that state with our own forces and recognition, and to reach a state where we really do unite with nature, and not become one with nature, like this slogan that is said many times, to be one with nature. What does it mean to be one with nature? What is the nature that we call it one? Do we want to unite with the still vegetative and animate? It's possible. It's possible to do it also without the wisdom Kabbalah. Let us diminish all our desires, reduce them through meditations, diets, and other ways, and we will reach a state. And from experience, I can say that indeed I can feel the whole of nature. Me and nature are one. Me, the trees, the inanimate, everything merges miraculously. Is that nature, or is there something higher we should strive for and reach?
So see what stems from this law, that actually we can attain everything only from its opposite state. Actually, there are two things here. One, nature, it's amazing. We soon will tell you about this. I deal with education. And if we look at nature, it does it in such artistry, the development of humanity in such an amazing way. Look at it, think about a child. He wants to go and play with something, meaning a desire develops in him, and it says, go and do it. The child decides on his own, no, it's not good, I want to already move to the next thing. No problem, move to it. Of course, behind the scenes, nature is like this experienced maid who is sitting there and helping and directing you. You want to try this desire, then this desire, until that child, or us as humanity, wants to reach the reflection and participation in the plan of nature, to be a part and to identify and participate from a desire and need of our own with an inner change, and not that it was coerced upon us. The second thing is that also because of our program, we are constructed from the will to receive. I can't grasp the light as it is on its own. I grasp it from a contradiction. I am the will to receive, and this is the light. From that I grasp. Therefore, the wholeness of nature, the harmony, and to reach all these things, I have to first come from the state which is opposite it. From, first of all, being in the opposite point. Yes, and I'm not talking about suffering, but a great will to receive, which is now willing to grasp the whole system of nature. Like to perceive, let's say, if everything was just white, we wouldn't discern anything. The moment I'm a black point, I start discerning, oh, this is a black point and that's white. That's how we are constructed, and that's the way of nature to grow us towards a desire of our own, which is great for identifying with Him.
You said something before which I didn't understand. Nature educates a person, meaning the birds, the mountains, the bacteria, and the streptococcus.
The streptococci.
They educate me, they teach me.
It's a good question, and Yoram, we have a prelude for the balance with nature and the speaking level. So, a question that Amit asked is really correct, because I see nature, which I don't feel part of it. Yeah, nature is, like you said, it's the birds, the sea. Ask your friends, what is nature? Let them write associations. We once did that kind of an exercise. See what they'll tell you. No one's going to say my thoughts, me, my mother-in-law, the trade in the stock exchange. No one's going to say that that's part of nature, but rather normal things. Actually, nature is made up of 4 different levels. As we know, still, vegetative, animate, and speaking, meaning the humankind. Also, within humankind, there are 4 such levels according to the types of desires, where the most developed part is that point in the heart, that point which is awakened. All the degrees in nature are pushed instinctively towards bestowal amongst them, towards an integral connection, a systematic connection of giving. That's instinctive. But in human beings, think to yourself, who of you thinks that it's an obligation, an automatic automation, I have to give and care for them and concern for them before I can care for myself? Who feels such a thing actually instinctively? Do you feel?
No. Instinctively? No.
Instinctively, no. Meaning, we are trying to come to balance with nature through some systems there, greenhouses, to stop using the consumption of ozone and so on. Everything we try to do, it doesn't succeed. Why? Because we're in this program which is called the will to receive. And that's the thing that's opposite, all in all. That program which is in that field of relationships between us, as we use the connections between us in order to enjoy for himself. That's how I'm opposite nature. So what is nature educating me?
The will to receive in order to receive. In what nature is educating me? It educates me through both reins and brings me to a state where I start asking those questions, how can I? Because eventually it's a simple calculation. It's one calculation, a calculation that stems from the purpose of creation. It's a calculation about pleasure. Eventually, we're here in order to enjoy. And a person looks for pleasure his whole life, and if he has no pleasure, then why should he live for? Some inertia forces me, inertia puts me in this life framework, also people who suffer in life, but eventually we're here to enjoy ourselves, and the wisdom Kabbalah teaches us how to enjoy in the best possible way, but to really enjoy, not in a transit way. And this is what nature educates me, how to receive pleasure.
And this pleasure is received by me being in balance, in homeostasis with nature, but not at all the different levels, only on one level, at the level of medaber, the speaking, in the right connection, which is balanced and organized between us.
And you know why? I will just tell you something, and we will talk about it in some other lesson. This is because there is no nature. Everything you see, the mountains, the birds, the trees, and also your grandpa and your grandma, they're not really there. It's in us. We, out of the height of our development and the special degree we're in, we comprehend the entire nature in us systematically. We contain them all. This is called that man is a small world. The Ari wrote about it, and we will elaborate it more.
But before we do that, it looks like everyone's like holding their heads like that, and they're saying, "Oh, okay." Well, sometimes we have to kind of like shake up and everything like that. But look, I want to talk about this balance. Actually, look what's happening here. We are part of nature. We are part of these systems. We are opposite nature. Through all of this, through us perceiving out of contrast, nature created a field of studying where we actually have freedom to come consciously to the fact that the balance between us is in the right connections, that we ourselves will create this integral system. And this is our correction, and through this we come to balance with nature and to the pleasure and all that we want. The question is,
how does it happen in practice?
How do we do this exactly? Everyone knows that what wisdom of Kabbalah is saying on the matter, but before that we're going to do a little bit of suspense. We have a friend who's a great director. You'll get to know him. He always says that the element of suspense is the most important element.
I think that Thomas has an idea. He's asking about the importance of prayer. Does it have anything to do with prayer? This thing of rising above, or how should we use that force called prayer?
Well, first of all, the question is, what would we call prayer?
The common prayer usually in humanity is, I feel bad, change the situation.
And it's you that's not good, because look.
And who caused all that?
Yeah, look what you did to my life.
Change the situation. In the land of Israel, we have a wall, such wall, which is called the Western Wall. And people go there and put notes there. Perhaps then the upper force, the Creator, will change the situation, and all the notes, I think that there, how many notes?
About every year someone comes with a bag and they take all the paper, all the little notes, so that there'll be room for more.
Really? Indeed?
Well, after thousands of years, where are you going to stick anymore? And there's also there's a fax to the Wailing Wall that you can send.
Really?
I don't know if they have emails, but what are we trying to say? Of course. By the way, I've put notes in the Western Wall as well. It's a custom, but it's really important that we understand that this prayer, which I pray, it's without something on my behalf. I remain the way I am, and I'm asking for reality around me to change. Meaning, I'm not taking these first two axioms with which we began this lesson, there's none else besides him, where he arranges everything for me, also through my boss and my neighbor and my wife and everything. That's one. And two, that he is good that does good. That this thing brings me and even advances me more towards balance with him, if I know how to use this correctly. And then, because a lack of consciousness, of awareness in this, humankind says, I'm thinking through my will to receive. What can the will to receive think? You did bad to me. Make it so it'll be better. And I'll be a good boy. And that's it.
And here the wisdom of Kabbalah really turns people around and take him again to look inside and to understand that only his attitude towards reality should change. And the concept of prayer gradually, not like that, because it's not simple, but he starts receiving a different shape, different nature. It is consisted from requests and gratitude, and we will elaborate on it on the second semester. But actually, we're talking about a state where a person incriminates himself, he judges himself, he looks at himself, he judges himself, and not at all everything around him, nothing. Doesn't matter who's there and what he did. Only how I react with my attitude to the reality that surrounds me.
How do I need to correct my perception, my qualities from reception to bestowal, so that I will grasp only in this whole thing one thing, the connection with the Creator, and to feel that He is good, so I won't judge Him, but I will justify him. And this is, by the way, what we call righteous.
Now, Rosie from England is asking, you said that no one around me actually exists.
I told you, right?
So when we feel some common experience, who actually feels it? In which reality do we feel all that?
Rosie, it's not your fault. It's him. Ignore this.
It was a spoiler from the 8th lesson.
Yeah, it's a teaser. We'll talk about that and the lesson about the perception of reality. For the time being, let's try not to confuse ourselves. So once again, let's move to the question. Nature pushes us towards balance. How does the educational process occur? Because it's clear that the educational process begins from something that we are doing, from us. Let's see a prelude to the caution in using the laws of nature.
So, if we spoke about it, and Baal Sulam writes about it very beautifully, again, we mentioned the article, the piece. We will mention it on the Facebook group, and we really, really recommend that you should read it. About the two forces of nature, reception and bestowal. The force of reception, we know it real well. It is clear to us. This is why we know it. What does it mean that we know the force of reception? If I don't receive something which I need to exist, then I suffer. Meaning, immediately I feel the influence of that force on me.
I'll give you an example. Tell a man not to look at women.
You immediately feel
it's
like not eating. Very similar.
Almost. Meaning I feel immediately the result from not receiving. These are laws of reception. It's not like I need to be devoid of something, but immediately I feel the result. Time doesn't pass, but immediately I felt, and in a very direct manner, the laws of bestowal, comparatively.
The laws of bestowal, in a very blessed manner, but seemingly very cruel, are concealed from us. Now, the laws of bestowal, what does it mean that they're concealed from us? We, the speaking kind, we don't feel that also those forces operate inside reality, inside nature, meaning the laws of giving, the mutuality, the influence on each other. Those laws, if I don't keep them, then I don't feel a punishment, an axe that comes down and cuts my neck. I stole from someone, somebody cut me on the road, and now he can get lost. I don't feel that I'm violating any law here. But on the other hand, Baal Sulam writes in his article, The Peace, this is why humanity is fried on the pen, on this
about some horrible, tormenting, suffering. This is actually our whole crisis.
It's the concealment, meaning we are not aware to the fact that the force of bestowal controls our life. The still vegetative and animate keep the law of bestowal instinctively. They keep the balance between reception and bestowal. Look at the harmony in nature. Look at the still vegetative and animate, complete harmony. And in the speaking kind,
and especially here, there's an educational act, because in the concealment, humankind gets this desire, this need to disconnect from it, which is only reception, that we already feel that it's not this, we need something more, it's not working, and it compels and pushes us, especially those with the point in the heart, because we already have a certain direction, to get to know the system of bestowal, to get to know its laws. How do we discover it? Not if I don't have a desire. If I don't have a desire, just let me enjoy. Let me just let me be. Close my eyes. A little tequila, or in Georgia, by the way, they drink something called cha-cha.
Cha-cha.
It's something with like 60 proof alcohol. It's thank you very much. We don't need anything else. But if I'm already understanding that I'm in concealment, I understand that I need to disclose to myself and reveal a system. And this is how all the scientists and the economists and all that, they feel that there's something new. We need to discover it. And this is the first educational act of nature. So the question is as such. Okay, where do we start to learn these laws? Where is this study field?
And also the fact that we should be very, very cautious. This is why the title we gave the interlude is taken from the article The Peace. Bala Sulam writes, practicing cautious in the laws of nature, meaning in a simple way. Let's look at it. If nature is comprised from forces of bestowal and reception, we're very cautious about reception. If I want to eat, I will starve to death. I cannot afford myself not to eat. I can't. So why can I allow myself not to bestow?
Meaning the question is, how do I feel the laws of the other system? And also Bala Sulam writes about this. Imagine to yourself, if we were to feel that each time I would be taking something at the expense of the other, how does he say there? It's like someone is receiving the blow of fire. It's the most terrible torments and suffers. And if we give to someone, it's like endless pleasures, meaning amazing pleasure if I would to go to give. Then once again, it would be reception for oneself. So how do we learn how to feel the laws of the system of bestowal? Where? In what school? Let's move to our next prelude, the law of development.
What does the law of evolution tells us? We spoke about it, we explained the rest of the laws in previous lessons. Nature develops. Nature is in motion. The light is in absolute rest. It is as if the light is in absolute rest. But in fact, the entire creation is in an unconstant tendency of evolution that cascades from one source and from above downward and through the second phase and through our ascent from below upward until we reach the same state where we are united and cleaved and are one together with the thought of creation. Till then, we're in constant evolution. But what is it all about? Till now, our evolution was linear. It was in a line. It was motivated by our ego. We have evolved like this. Everyone pulled to his own direction. This one goes here, the other one goes there and there, while we're all in one round system. Nature itself is whole, it's round, it's harmonious, and only the speaking kind goes according to his broken will to receive, according to his ego, looking for fulfillment without looking around. See how narrow it is, how much we don't see anything on our sides. So what is required from us now? What are the correct rules, laws of evolution in the next degree of humanity? In the next degree we rise to spirituality. If we look at nature, we will understand it in a very simple way. Now, we need to stabilize a circle evolution instead of linear, instead of one-side competition where I go and attain and accumulate on the expense of everyone else. Only me develops, only my individual. I fulfill the whole world. We will explain there is a spiritual root for it, this individuality. But here we are required to look around and to understand, okay, if we are social creatures, if we are required to live social lives, if I have no other choice but to live inside a system of interdependency and very tight connections which tie me to others, then I have to take them into consideration and not to live on their expense.
I want to return to the diagram that Amit drew here. And what do we have here? This is called an environment. This is the environment in which we developed throughout thousands of years. Humanity, our society, taught a person that all in all, my goal in life is to be filled with pleasures. That's it. That's my whole goal. How? Exploit the environment more and more. And to the point, don't even care. Enjoy. There's all kinds of advertisements I saw lately. Be stupid, take advantage, be more than everyone. I don't know. All kinds of things like that. I've lived in that environment. That environment was moved by desires. Now it's being inverted. Now I need to take this environment and instead of also think about the picture of education in school. What are our children being taught? Exactly for this. Be more, competition, earn at the expense of others, profit at the expense of others. The education, you know this also. We're going to send you some clips soon. They talk about this. The experts talk about this, that we're already in an era where systems that are connected, a network system, and our education is ready with the industrial development revolution periods. So we need to take this environment of ours, because here is where mankind's development occurs. Here is that field where these changes are occurring, in our field here. Otherwise, we see the results, a crisis. And by the way, crisis, I prepared a surprise for you.
What?
We have a clip that we prepared with a star that you probably all know. What happens when we don't use the environment in the right way and the crisis continues? Well, a clip with a little hint. It's a surprise for you. Let's see this. Okay.
Yeah, very tricky. I haven't seen this clip for 6 years.
Professor in the end. Yeah, we prepared it together.
It's 2008 when we have the financial crisis.
Yes, and it's going and sharpening. Let's just finish this because Tal has some questions. Look, education occurs in an environment. A person needs to feel the environment just like the environment is pushing me now to go to everything other than seeing the connections between us. A person can and needs to feel that the exalted, highest pleasure is in the connections between us. So that will be my education. So in this I will see my pleasure. All in all, and you need to understand, maybe we didn't emphasize this so much in the beginning lessons, I am a will to receive. What am I searching for?
Pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure. From what? So let's say in the beginning I have the pleasures from food. Okay, sex. Okay, I need sex. Oh, family. Oh, that's what comes from sex. So I guess we need to take care of them. But the other desires, when I enter into a society, I don't know what I want. What will I receive pleasures from? And then the society tells me, if you'll buy their
Rolex?
Rolex, you see that nice, good-looking man that all the women are hanging out about him? Of course, it's if you buy a Rolex, then you will have like him, a life like him. They say, oh, wow, I'll have pleasure from that. So I go and I buy a Rolex. Or, well, some Google table phone. I don't want to advertise a specific brand or something. They tell you, if you buy this phone, which is the version number 5.3, today I have only 5.25. If you buy 5.3, you'll have a lot more pleasure. You'll be able to, the applications will be a second faster, and you'll have a greater life. From this, I'll get pleasure. Yes. Okay, please. I want.
It's not only that you want, everyone else has it.
Exactly. And the rest have, to the point that I heard that there's a few people in the world that are waiting in the stores, in specific stores, for a whole day to get to be the first to receive something. What am I saying? The environment can tell me what to enjoy from and to give me pleasure from anything, even from the most illusionary things. So we can take this environment, which can educate us towards pleasure. For example, to enjoy when we were relating to others with love. Just like we gave the example with the mother, and so that I will enjoy by filling them, from them being filled. You can reach that, truly. So I will have a desire to fill the others.
Can say many things about it. This is the practice of the wisdom Kabbalah. This is the basics of it. There is something very essential here that we should emphasize here. Values of love of others, of connection, of compassion, of mutual concern. Humanity knows them all, and it makes sure to promote them, even appreciate such people, and even try to build social models like this throughout the years. In the beginning of the century, in Russia, there was this famous revolution which said, enough, let's live together as one family, all of us together. We see that it only brings to a greater suffering. This is what happened with communism and all the processes that we try to create artificially that will make us settle with the realization of those values in this world only. There is no correction there. And we needed to go through that also. We're still scrutinizing it. This is still a delicate point that we need to understand, that there is no purpose here to be kind people, to smile to each other, to say good morning, and to hold your knife in your back, and to wish your neighbor to burn while she's alive. Because the correction is in the level of thoughts and in the level of desires and emotions. And therefore, if we don't make room to the only force which exists in nature and sustains it, you remember the first law? The light. If we don't do it in order to unite with it, to rise to another degree, a higher degree of our evolution, this whole correction of having a good life, of bestowal, being kind and pleasant to each other, mutual guarantee between us, it will only lead to a greater destruction.
I'll explain it in a little bit more schematic way.
Thank you, and I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You see, we're very polite today. Look, we have the will to receive, yes, and we have the will to bestow. As long as I'm in the will to receive, what's my desire? I want to absorb from everyone within me, to take advantage of everyone. Now I'm told in the levels of in the methods of education, oh no, be good to others, give them. For me, this is felt within the will to receive as death. To give to others? Yes, we'll say, we'll write here, to really give and nothing will come out from it. What? Praise and knowledge and honor and that, to me, giving is death, the sensation of death. And therefore, the methods of values and of such, they're not good. This is why it happens with children. You say, you need to love them. They say, but I don't want to love them. Yes, I have to. And then when he sees you and he looks at the side, and I see an example, and I learn only from examples, not from words. And that's how all humankind is. So the process of education is not through suppression. It occurs as the will to receive is moved to a longing for me to have a desire to bestow. So that will be lacking in me. And then here, like a mother which is in connection with all her children, when I give, and we showed this in the first lesson, if I'm not mistaken, or the second, when I give to others, I feel endless fulfillment and pleasure. But this is not where it ends, because this alone won't work. The process of education, if we're talking about those with a pointed heart, that all of this we do in order to come to connection with the Creator. And all of this is only a means. How do we, if so, you have questions? Oh, she has this face. You need to see Todd's face when she does a face like, I have questions.
It's not me. There are so many friends with questions.
Europe, all of Europe is crying out from the earth.
Yeah, it does. There are many friends with many questions. We spoke about nature and about the Creator. So how can we achieve such harmony with nature, both with nature and with the upper spiritual world? Because in nature we know that the stronger is the one that survives, the one who is aggressive and powerful. But that quality, if we understand it correctly, deviates us from the Creator. This is Kalina from Bulgaria asking that question. Kalina from Bulgaria, we're happy to announce to you and the rest of the friends, the laws have changed. We live in a new world. We really are in a new world. I'm serious. The laws have changed. The powerful survives. That's true in the corporal reality, and we'll keep seeing that. But we have entered an integral era, an era of mutual connection. And in that era, we saw the clip before, like in different professions and jobs, we'll start seeing now, in a short time, in this life, very significant changes. It's not the powerful who triumphs, it's not the powerful who becomes a tycoon. Rather, he who knows to think in a circular way, those who share, those who are connected, these are the powerful one who will triumph.
We see all over the world, it's discovered in the world, many big companies are moving from a hierarchical model to a round network method. Because even egotistically, we realize that if we manage it, I think one-dimensional, only in one way, to tell everyone what to do, it doesn't work. It fails in a great way in all the places, also in the governance. It doesn't work. Also in the economy. This economy does not work in all the different areas. There's a crisis. We're starting to understand, although it's still egotistical in our degree, that actually in the right connections between us, we can profit much more. It's still egotistical because it's still about profit, and we're still trying to use the old methods. But look how amazing it is if we compare it to, let's say, 80 or 90s or a few years back. No one would even conceive this.
So again, you mentioned education. We said that it is based today on values of competition and achievements. So which values are we talking about when we're talking about education in an interconnected world?
If I realize, I don't want to steal that, because we will have a true lesson on education, on how Kabbalah comes. It's a method that Rav Leitman developed. It's more than 400 programs about our life, how this giant Kabbalist gave his observation from the laws of the spiritual system and how it needs to be realized and implemented in the level of partnership and education and work and economy and between spouses and connections and relationships and all.
Every aspect of our life, it's the most practical methodology of how to manage ourselves on a daily basis in the spiritual era. How to live, first of all, to live, and even more than that, to rise to a spiritual life.
But we'll say maybe one word on the field of education. In reality, imagine to yourself a reality in which we're all closed in one place, and each is dependent on everyone completely, to the point where something happens, everything explodes. We see this, a lot of suffering. What kind of education would you give children in such an integral, connected reality to take advantage more, or education towards connection and cooperation, and not in order to be a good kid, but to show you how much he is rewarded by that, how much essence he gets, so he will how he will emerge from this as a leader, as a true, and not only feel himself, but the whole system that is growing and growing, and how mature you can get from this. We can broaden this topic so much. What kind of system would you build educationally? So we will talk about this more, and we'll talk more about this. There are methods here. I'm telling you this. This is something that's already several of our next cascadings, but we will do courses of education, of the wisdom of connection, where we will all acquire, for those who will continue, the knowledge how to be an instructor and educationer of these things. It's truly amazing. Also, Tal is an educator and an instructor, and she knows.
Can I ask a quick question? A question from Madrid. This system you describe, it sounds like a game. So all that we have to do is discover the rules of the game?
Right, it's written. The Creator is playing with a whale. The whale is all of creation. It's our general vessel. And really, it's all a game. We discovered that this whole thing, very well, this will actually continue the circle, a little drop here. We discovered that this whole thing was all in all a game, that everything that appeared to us as scary and threatening, in the end it'll be revealed to us, it was some little game through which, because this game is very serious, it enabled me through the concealment and these scary images and the ministers, and Baal HaSulam gives us a really nice parable, allegory about this in one of his letters. In the end, when all the clothings are undressed, the creature remains. He doesn't see all the clothings. He sees the Creator who wants to bring him to his degree, and that's the whole purpose. He just wanted to do good for him, and the creature perceives all of reality as the reality of the Creator, because he himself becomes like the Creator. That nature merges. Only what? Everything is the same, only there's one thing, the consciousness of the creature, that all of this is the Creator and it's all for him. And from there, the true work begins. So it's all a game, but we need to discover that it's all a game, because it's a very serious game.
It's the game of life.
It's the game of life. Look, we need to move to the next law, because the question, we talked about environment now and the world and so on. What happens with our environment? We talked about free will in us. How is it in us, in our environment? So let's talk about the law of deficiency. Do we have this? Law number 12.
Okay, we're happy to see that this interlude is very accurate. It makes us very happy. So,
yes?
What's going on here? There is a very delicate matter here. We have explained that human evolution till now was a linear evolution out of our ego. And we have reached a state where in certain people, in us, points in the heart were disclosed. What are the points in the heart? These are the same reshimot from that state. We were connected together in mutual relationship between us before. And now, in order to reach a state where we actually live inside the point in the heart, we open it up and make it a vessel for the feeling of the Creator, we have to turn it into a circle environment that will be able to adapt itself to the spiritual abstract form. So if we will play between us, you remember, we just talked about playing. So if we will play, if we will pretend to love each other, if we'll play a game of love, but in a way which is very measured, guided by Kabbalists, according to advices given to us by Kabbalists, so that we will constantly realize one single goal, that this game between us will create between us this kli, in which we will be able to disappear and something else to be born in us, some new me or a kli with the feeling of the Creator in it. This is why We generate and we operate inside an environment, and we try to make it as round as possible, and we expand that environment according to circles, human social circles, and so on. In this intimate environment of ours, here now when we're in a lesson, or in the Facebook group, or in a physical group, or between the friends who study together, what is the essence of work? What am I supposed to do inside that environment? What am I supposed to work on to make that environment, so for that environment to create the infrastructure in which I will be able to receive the spiritual light and make me equal to the Creator? What do I need in order to feel the Creator? If the Creator is the quality of bestowal, what do I need in order to feel the quality of bestowal? It's a very simple answer. If we are a desire, so what is our working tool? Only a desire. Only a desire. There is no other tool. And therefore, instead of will to receive, I need the will to bestow. Meaning, I need to have a lack, a deficiency for bestowal. It's not something that I have naturally. It was awakened, yeah, we call it point in the heart. It led me to that wisdom of truth. It placed me inside an environment, and gradually it tells me, no, start working. What does it mean, start working? It means build the environment which will constantly ignite, like in a bonfire, that deficiency, that lack that you have for spirituality. You felt it at first, it led you across half a world before it brought you to the study of the wisdom of truth. Now do it by yourself.
There's something else as to the lack that we need to understand. The Holy Ari says, as we say, before the emanated were emanated, the creatures were created, there was a light of Ein Sof simply filling all of reality. Yes? We'll do a few more rounds here and we'll fill up all of reality. There's a light. The light is actually all the force of bestowal, and its purpose is to develop the creature to the recognition and the consciousness and perception of the Creator. So a little black dot here, that's the creature. What does he need in order to feel all that light? Only one thing, for it to be lacking to me. He needs to build that desire. And therefore, there are two things here. One, through the wisdom of Kabbalah, the creature starts to get to know the evil in him. Just like we said in the previous processes, that there's a will to receive which leads me to a dead end, and that this thing is bad. Why is it bad? Because with the help of the wisdom of Kabbalah, I start to feel something that cannot happen without the wisdom of Kabbalah. I start to feel, let's say it in such a way, I become sensitive to this usage and this change in the will to receive. And I start to say, wait a minute, the fact that I want to harm the other and to enjoy at his expense and a million things, that's bad. I feel that. Why is it bad? Because I feel that it distances me from the Creator. I feel it distances me from the ability to develop. That's one thing. The second thing, in order to feel all this reality in my environment, we talked about environment. Let's draw the environment with some other color. In my environment, I begin to develop a vessel, kli. We're going to call it a kli, a vessel. Meaning a lack. For what? A lack for me wanting to have a different property. I feel like development is there. My friends, the writings of the Kabbalists, Rav Leitman, the two green teachers who are dealing with you here, and all the organizers and all the 2 million students that are here, and we call this the World Kli. And why? Because it's the common lack that we're building together. And why? just so that I will lack one simple thing, importance. Because I drink, I eat, I dance, sex, family, everything. And for me to have even more of a lack. For what? For spirituality. Why? We don't need anything more than that. We make a bitter mistake as humanity for years already. Why? I'm a will to receive, and what am I searching for? To be filled? No. We just need the lack. Because the moment I create here, look, the moment I create a vessel here, that's it. It's filled with light. I created a greater vessel, a greater kli. The deficiency, the lack, the light fills me and fills. I created a vessel like this, a kli like this. It's called that I'm in the final correction in adherence with the Creator. All that is needed in us, and that's the law. Don't search for the fulfillment. That anyway is my program. It's going to operate that way. Let it work. All the beast, we call it the beast. Feed the beasts, feed your donkey, whatever it wants. And let's make sure that we care for the human in us that is searching how to resemble the Creator. And Rav always talks about Rabash. He used to ask, where's that supermarket, that grocery store where we buy that lack? Why? Because that's the only thing that is missing. And therefore our environment and the Facebook with all the friends, that's the most important thing, because only from them, thanks to our common connections between us, through those who are studying from the Kabbalists, only from them I can get that lack, not from anyone else.
We will see how miraculous it is, how our sensitivity opens up, and how we will start distinguishing that in all those simple means that we have, friends on the internet together with us, and few short texts, and listen to a lesson here and there. All those means we spoke of in the lesson about the free choice, I can really increase with them my luck. And then we will see that in every moment in our daily life, every contact with every moment, I can churn it in order to increase my spiritual desire. And this is what we need to do. And this is why it is called that the light is in constant rest. You see what Moshe drew here? This is a field. This is a field of infinite energy, of bestowal, which actually is filled up and exists absolutely with abundance and the entire information, intelligence, and with all the infinite pleasure, the most exalted that can be. And we can only do one thing, to adapt ourselves to that field. How? If we will look for that equivalence between us. The field is gone. We don't feel it. It's not felt. Let's have such a relationship between us, such a virtual environment between us in thoughts and desires. It doesn't have to be anything physical. And we will feel that we gradually start experiencing that field. It opens up for us a new reality. How does it happen? Because it is the only thing that operates, the only thing that operates, that corrects, that can change, that can move anything, that can develop anything. It's the light. You remember the first law? There is only one law. A law that is called, there is none else besides Him. Therefore, all these actions that we do and connect between us are only in order to make room for the light to do its work.
And this leads us to a law, which is called law number 14, the law of in its time and in haste.
We're supposed to have such an interlude.
Look, we're going to do a blitz on the remaining laws. Of course, we are going to broaden on this and send us questions. We're recording clips for our pleasure. So, look, we talked about the Reshimot. Imagine that we have a source of light which shines and illuminates a certain plumage of light. And now, in our development, How do we develop? If all of us, the question arises, if we will all reach that final correction, where all of creation, like the definition of the wisdom of Kabbalah, the roots and everything, everyone comes to the revelation of the Creator. So I'll sit and I'll wait. Yeah, I'll sit foot on foot and just, the Kabbalists will do the work and then I'll reach there. But no, there's two ways that nature or the providence created for us so that we will reach development in order to get there with awareness in a conscious way in balance and not just like an animal. One is called in due time, in the time that we want it, or in haste, where we hasten the times. And actually, we have two types of reshimot. We talked about them. One type, we'll do here a little spiral here. Yes, that's the reshimo, the materialistic reshimo. And that's of the will to receive. And we have another reshimo, the spiritual reshimo, of the desire to bestow, the will to bestow. Now, the whole thing is what I want, or what I want the light to influence, because the light is there in absolute rest. What do I put? If we're in our environment, in the study, we make the efforts with the right intentions. I seemingly put some cogwheel under the light, and it operates the DNA or the reshimo of my spiritual development. And if I do any other intention like the rest of the world, then I'm operating the materialistic reshimo, which is blows and sufferings and all those things. Why? In order to bring me once again to that point of what do I want? I feel that enough, I need to disconnect from this method and to move to another method.
And what is that other method? It's the method of connection, the method of the connection between us. So basically, it's a simple matter. And by the way, those ways, Kabbalists call them other names, the path of Torah and the path of suffering. The path of Torah, meaning the path of light. Torah, it's not the same book called Torah Pentateuch. Rather, the Kabbalists always refer to the internality of the word. So Torah comes from the light or guidance. And so we actually mean that the choice that exists only with those in the point in the heart, those who can sentence the whole world to a scale of merit or demerit. So the choice is taking a path where we submit to the will to receive and we're waiting for something to push us from behind, or we create an environment that will make us be pulled forward. And this is a more active way. Seemingly it requires more effort, but if we do it together, it's fun and it's easy. Only nature will always pull us back. Therefore, the combination between those two ways is usually the way, the path by which Kabbalists explain to us that we will develop towards spirituality. And that middle path is called the middle path, a path that is a combination of blows from behind, because we're all a bit spoiled, and a constant and renewed tendency towards spirituality, towards bestowal and connection.
And why don't you look here at the diagram? This is actually what happened about 4,000 years ago, when we talked about the development of Abraham's group, that Kabbalists and the degree of Abraham, and the Babylonians, and he told them, let's rise above our ego, let's learn how to be in balance with nature. And they didn't do this. They could have chosen, but they didn't. They went in the path of suffering, and they deviated from that path. And Abraham and his Kabbalist group, and a certain gap was created after 4,000 years, an endless gap. Now all these Babylonians, all of us, the whole world, we all need to reach what point? We won't reach with them this point where the Kabbalists are, but rather we're going to need to come to that point of the beginning of spiritual development. What does this mean? Because a person could think, I'll go in the path of, in due time, And with time, yeah, they'll say, well, I'll get there sometime. No, it's like a donkey. Rav Leitman gives this example about a mule or a donkey that's on the path and he doesn't want to go ahead, or it's going and eating something on the side there. What does his owner do? He beats him with a stick. The donkey doesn't go back ahead in the thing. All in all, gets to the decision that it's not worthwhile for me to be here, but it's better for me to get back to the path that my Lord wants me to. But if he were to make a decision and he would precede his writer, Baal HaSulam has a article like this, thou has hemped me from before and aft. And what does he do? And if he precedes him, he would even acquire the mind of the writer. He would do it quickly. He would do it with pleasure, without any suffering. Well, there are many examples of this. A child that needs to study. Well, what's important here is that all in all today, after all of this development, each and every one of all of humanity has the opportunity to come with the Kabbalists to that final state of correction. This brings us to an additional law that we want to talk about, and this is the law of mutual guarantee. Because this move from here to here, if we can show the diagram, from here to here, does not occur on its own. We see that the world is not coming ahead to some consciousness and understand. There's a law of integrality and of globality, and there are those who want to become us, and there's the rest of the world in a certain body. It's not possible that a cell or a limb or an organ or a healthy part is somehow going to neglect the rest. In the law of globality, of integration, everyone is caring and concerned with the other. And therefore, other than the connections between us that we develop as an environment, we, the Kabbalists, need to become the environment for the world, an educational environment, an environment which gives the direction and the path, and we will talk about this in a way that the world can swallow and chew. Not in the way of Zeranpin and Malchut and Sfirot and worlds and Partzufim, which are very remote from the housewife in Bulgaria or in Poland or I don't know where.
What Moshe just explained is that the law of mutual guarantee, Arvut, is the correction for the evolution of humanity as we know it, of the revelation of how much we are interdependent. The law of interdependency we spoke of in previous lessons and today also. We see how the connections between us become tighter and tighter, only they're broken and we don't feel those connections to their depth and we don't use them correctly. And if we use them correctly, meaning if we will be in mutual guarantee, then we will create a vessel to feel the Creator. Now, there is another essential question here, because the development of itself, of humanity, goes according to two laws, two ways of development. One is the law of development of the interdependency between us, and the other one is the law of the development of the ego. Everyone also is an individual ego. Throughout the evolution of human civilization grew bigger. It became more and more developed. So what do I do with my ego now? With all my tendencies, with everything I had acquired throughout all of my life cycles, Baal HaSulam compares humanity to one generation. All the people who live, it's like one small generation that goes like soldiers, tuck, 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 moving from one era to another, from one era to another, from one era to another. We live through many such eras, and the only thing that develops in us is our ego. So what do I do with it? Moshe, we have a law about it.
Yes, and this is exactly what we are drawing here. Look, especially because we need to develop towards the greatest desire, because we need to receive in it the endless filling, especially since we develop through consciousness, through contrast, constantly. From the opposite forms, I can grasp the other form that I need to reach, from not being in it. Especially from me needing to each time anew to come into balance with nature and needing to recognize every single degree, because every degree is like a whole new world which is being discovered from another desire which is revealed. And I need to get to know my next form, which is concealed from me. Because the laws of giving are concealed from me. It works out that all these parts here, from the 125 degrees of correction, go and develop between opposites. And what does this mean? It means two different levels. One on the level of our world. If you'll think about this, Baal HaSulam gives an example. A certain creature would come, let's say some alien, it would come and look at humankind and look at some a baby and compare it to a calf that was just born. And he would say, this baby was a few pounds of protein and meat, screams and poops and does that. It's flawed. Nothing, it's blemished. Nothing good will come out of it. And if we look at the calf, what? They say a calf that's one day, you can call it a bull. He knows how to stand, he's a great Napoleon. That's how Baal HaSulam writes here. It's a most fine creature, because we don't take into account the law of development which happens in nature, which occurs under opposites, where the creature is made up and is more complex and fine in its future, in its end. They have to go through opposite states before that. Think about a fruit. Well, did anyone pick, let's say, a grapefruit before it was ripe, or an orange, and try to eat it, or orange, or a kiwi, or a mango?
I have a mango tree at my home.
Oh, a mango,
it's huge.
It's a great example.
Soon I will give you when they're ripened.
So we're saying with the mango, in the end it's juicy and sweet, and it drips between your fingers and your face like that, and try to eat it when it's small and green. It's like, I wouldn't believe that from that hard and green thing, something comes out of it which is truly amazing and juicy. The same thing about the species of speaking, which is the most refined of the species. And same thing with the other creatures. Something that's really fine in the morning, in the end you don't see development. In mankind you see truly the development through opposites. And spiritual development, this thing goes and develops from the smallest to ascents and descents and ascents and descents until the absolute recognition, from the greatest desire to the recognition and awareness of the Creator and godliness. And this way that we develop, specifically through this development, we acquire the complete
Now we will
revelation.
skip the interlude, but we will mention the fact which is very essential for the approach of Kabbalists. And Baal HaSulam, he devotes a big part from the article, the peace, the freedom, which we studied, and he calls it the Mount of Singularity. What the virtue of singularity? What does it mean? That fruit which seems corrupted to me, I cannot judge it with my corrupted eyes and say it's corrupted. Similarly, that person which I don't know what and how he does, I don't know what the Creator had planned for him. And therefore, there is a very, very important law here, that every tendency that we have by nature, and there are many of them, we need to keep them. It's not corrupted just like that. It is corrupted for us to correct it. And if we will destroy it and burn it and try to eradicate it from the face of the earth, and there were many attempts to do so throughout human history. One, we will fail. And see, this is not the way of correction, because the way of correction is to take that virtue, which is called the uniqueness of each and every one of us, which seems peculiar or narrow or very specific perhaps, and perhaps corrupted and creates distraction because it is within the ego, it is imprinted within the human's ego. And this is why it operates, as Baal HaSulam says, it operates in distractions. But if together and in a spiritual environment, we will learn how to turn those special tendencies that we have, because everyone is unique in the world, and without them the puzzle is incomplete. Each and every one is obligated to reach a correction by himself. Otherwise there won't be a general correction until everyone will reach correction, everyone according to his virtue. So what do we have to do with the qualities and special attributes that we have to see how we contribute it into the whole circle of humanity, and not how we develop just ourselves.
And therefore, every process we see in nature, how the Creator does this, and the whole process the Kabbalists are talking about, is not destruction or suppression of sex, or no prisons and police and other things will help us. And now they're giving drugs to everyone just so they calm down. None of that will help. Only one thing will help. You see here in the diagram? In order for a person to move from will to receive, from his singularity, he is the most developed, the most cunning person. There's only one thing, a process of education, a move from the will to receive. So it will all of a sudden be important to me, this thing. So I will get to know through education and knowledge that this is important. And the form of education that we will talk about soon, this is where the light which reforms operates upon this education, and this brings the person to this will to bestow, and all the rest is, all the other properties are preserved, and all the worst of the qualities and properties are preserved. Only they receive the form of bestowal, and thus the creature becomes similar to the Creator. We are going to steal 1 minute in order to get maybe one more question. What do you think?
I feel a great need to apologize because we have so many viewers here. I think from all over Europe they're asking so many questions. I can't ask them all, but perhaps we will be able to go over them with the clips as we go. But Nick from London is asking, is it called work? We talked about opposite. Is it called work? Because this is a kind of working against my nature.
Are you looking at me?
What do you mean, what is called work? Our development? Of course. Of course.
But whose work?
Ah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. First of all, it is called the work. In the next semester, when we will study the Rabash's article, you will see that every article of his, the title of the article ends with the work, meaning there is a concept that is called the work, but the work is internal work of man, a work that man himself constantly can be in, including at night when he is asleep. And it truly is a skill, an acquired skill throughout our evolution and our study. As we go, we will learn all those advices that will make us be in the work of the Creator constantly. What is the work of the Creator? It is the work that I do in order to build in me a light, to prepare a place in me for the Creator, for the light to work. Because a person himself, what can he do?
So with that, we thank you all, to the translators who managed to stay another 2 minutes, and we promise to answer all your questions.
And read the article, the piece also.
We're going to send you the article, the piece, for you to read, and maybe even a set of articles, and we're going to see you next week, and with our Facebook group. Thank you, and so long.